So when you find a facility that's priced anywhere near correct, anywhere near a price that works for you, it's critical that you get control of that property as quick as you can. Hello, my name's Mark Helm. I'm the author of Creating Wealth Through Self-Storage, and I support small investors who want to get in the self-storage business or who want to grow their self-storage business, strategically do so in a way that creates true wealth and a fulfilling career. And in this series, the Getting Started series, we're talking about the spaces one goes through deal mode. Last week, we talked about how to analyze a facility and how to analyze a market. And when you find a facility that can work for you, it's critical that you get control of it as quick as possible. And that's what this episode's about. So there's two ways to do it. One is to write a contract. The other is to write a letter of intent. In most cases, I prefer writing a letter of intent. And then once we get the property standing still through a letter of intent, then we generate a contract. So let me go into depth about that. The reason I like the letter of intent is because with the seller, you're negotiating the major business terms. What's important to the seller and what's important to you as the buyer are what are you paying for it, how long the due diligence time is, what are the things that are important to you that are contingencies that will allow you to be able to walk away from the deal, what's important to the seller. All those business terms are negotiated in the letter of intent. Now, once you and the seller have agreed on the basic business terms, in other words, you have an accepted letter of intent, then we go to contract. Now, in the book, Creating Wealth Through Self-Storage, and in some of the courses at the quickstartacademy.com, I go into a lot of detail about what's involved in doing that. That's not the purpose of this episode. The purpose of this episode is to answer what are some of the best practices today that I think we should be using as we try to get control of a self-storage facility. So I want to go into that right now. So best practice, like I said, is to write a letter of intent and then go to a contract. But here's best practice number one. If you can, always go see the property prior to writing the letter of intent. I talked about that last week, but I really think in today's market, especially for the smaller investor who may be competing with some rather large players with maybe a lot more resources than we have, by going and seeing the property, by letting the seller and the agent know you're real and that you can move quick and you are an interested party, that goes a long way when there are multiple letters of intent on the table for the seller to look at. So for years, I used to write a lot of letters of intent. Then when I got them standing still, I'd go look at them. I don't do that anymore today because I've lost out on a couple of properties doing it that way. And one time, I wrote it, thought it was a great deal. When I went and looked at the property, I decided, no, this isn't an area I want to be in. And the very next letter of intent I was going to write was to that same agent. How do you think that agent was going to present my offer? So I learned my lesson. For us, the smaller investor, best practice number one, always go look at the property if you can. Meet the seller, meet the agent. Best practice number two, trust your numbers. Know your numbers. Know what you can pay and what you can't pay for a facility. So as you're negotiating in the letter of intent, you know the maximum amount you can go. So if you're doing an expansion and you're going to spend X number of dollars on the construction on the expansion, trust that number. Look, if it changes, it changes. But while you're negotiating, trust the numbers you have. Don't start massaging your numbers during the negotiation to try to make a deal work. Do all of that work prior to starting talking to the seller in your letter of intent. And don't start real low. So if you can pay $2 million for a property, don't start at $1 million. Because here's what I know. Good agents, and there are a lot of good real estate agents out there, and you're going to be running into the same agents over and over again in your career. They're shaping the expectations of the seller. They've told the seller, look, let me price it where it should sell, because I tell you, I'm going to be bringing you offers 95%, 93% of the asking price. You don't have to respond to anything, but if you let me price it where it should be, we can get very good offers or full price offers. Those are the seller's expectations. So if you can make the deal work either through the initial acquisition or by adding the extra value, and you're anywhere near what the seller's asking price is, my coaching is go as high as you can. Why? Because odds are, if it's priced right and you're interested in it, other people are interested in it, and they're going to be submitting higher offers. So don't try to lowball and bottom feed in today's market. Best practice number 3, always try to meet the seller if you can. Now, I know this isn't always possible, but if you can, try to meet the seller and really get in the seller's world. Find out really why that seller is selling. Now, they have a story. Now, odds are that story is probably only partially true. Don't ever question it, but listen, question, probe, get what's really driving the seller to sell. And here's a hint, it isn't the money. Now, I've covered this in a lot of other episodes, but just know that the seller thinks it's the money. The agent thinks it's the money, but you and I know it isn't the money. It's what they think the money can get them. So find out what's really driving that seller. And then once you get that, when you're communicating with the seller and when you're communicating with the seller's agents, what you're doing is helping them achieve that goal. In the last transaction I did, the seller moved south into the coast because the seller wanted to get out of a big city and wanted to live near the ocean where it was relaxing with his family, and he could end up doing a lot of fun stuff on the water. He bought a boat, loves fishing. But what happened is he got into self-storage business, got very, very busy, and even though they moved, they were still not able to accomplish what had him come there in the first place. By us buying that facility, we're freeing that family up to do exactly what they want to do. And that's what's driving the seller. So what my job is to help the seller get that. Get to know the seller and help the seller achieve the seller's goals. And best practice number 4, now this might sound like common sense, but very often it isn't. Best practice number 4 is be someone that people want to do business with. So there are a lot of training courses and a lot of books out there, art of the deal type books out there that will tell you to negotiate hard. Then once you get it standing still before you sign the deal, negotiate again, get it down as low as you can. And that comes from the premise that if somebody wins, someone else has to lose. If I'm going to get a good deal, that means the seller got a bad deal. Don't come from that space. So if you're negotiating and you know, for example, that it's going to take you longer than 45 days, be straight about that. Don't be, I'll get in the contract and then I'll get in the deal with them and then they'll have to extend it because they don't want to go back to square zero again. You know, I was negotiating a deal recently and I know in today's market, appraisers are busy, bankers are busy, inspectors are busy. To get a deal done today in 45 days really, really takes something if you have contingencies. And I wanted longer. The seller wanted 45 days. I was just straight with them. I said, look, I'm happy to give you 45 days, but much of what happens in that 45 days is out of my control. So I'm telling you now, I very well may have to extend it. Now, I'm willing to pay for that extension. I'm willing to let my good faith deposit go hard if I need to, but I'm telling you now, I don't know that I can get it done in 45 days. Be the kind of person that you would want to be doing business with. So don't try to get it standing still at one price and under the premise that, yes, I'm going to negotiate it down further during the due diligence period. There are times when stuff comes up in the inspections that, yes, you may have to talk about a price adjustment, but don't go into the deal that way. Know your numbers and go into the deal thinking that you're paying what you can pay for it. Even if you don't get that deal, I'm telling you, you're going to be dealing with the same parties over and over again. And the last thing you can afford to do is get the reputation of being someone that agents and sellers don't want to deal with. This self-storage world is not that big a world. And you're going to be running into the same characters over and over again. Best practice number 4, be the type of person that you would want to be dealing with if you were selling a self-storage facility. Because guess what? One day you will be selling a self-storage facility. So just do what you say you're going to do by when you say you're going to do it. And if something comes up and you know that isn't going to happen, communicate it. As soon as you know it, just communicate it. Be straight with people. That goes a long way in growing and getting in this self-storage business. Now, once you have the letter of intent standing still, the next best practice is to turn it over to an attorney. Have an attorney, if at all possible, write the contract. Look, I'm a real estate agent. I have access to all kinds of contracts, but I always let the attorney write the contract. If I don't have an attorney or it's going to take too long, I will tell the seller that, and then the seller or the seller's agent can generate a contract for my attorney to review. But I try to cover myself, and it makes you look like you are a legitimate, much more polished buyer than we may be sometimes by just saying, well, I will take this letter of intent and my attorney will generate the contract. So to get a property standing still in today's world, those are what I think are the best practices. Now, what we're going to do in the next episode is, once you've got it standing still, what now? That's what we'll cover in the next episode. So thank you very much as we go through this Getting Started series of watching it with me. My name's Mark Helm. I'm the author of Creating Wealth Through Self-Storage, and I'm the creator of the Storage World Analyzer. And what the Storage World Analyzer is the financial analysis tool that we and hundreds of other people use today to do the initial analysis and then the analysis as we go through the due diligence period that we're going to talk about in the next episode. If you would like to find out more about that program, go to storageworldanalyzer.com and explore it and see if it's something that may support you as you get in this fantastic business. Thank you very much. Let me know what's going on in your world, how you're doing, what your successes are, what your challenges are, and I look forward to being with you again soon. Thanks a lot.